Rick and Bubba family, you'll be meeting for the first time Tim Rupp. Tim is from San Antonio, Texas, a retired police sergeant. He is going to be doing a couple of events in Rick and Bubba markets, but you can find out about everything that Tim has available to you by going to rickandbubba.com, looking in the show notes. He has written Pistol in the Pulpit, which these two events will be focused around. And really, Bubba, it's sad, but what Tim is trying to prepare organizations and churches for is active shooters.
Yeah, I was involved in one of those.
I know you were.
It's not a pleasant thing.
And Tim joins us now. Tim, welcome to Rick and Bubba. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Well, how sad is it that we have to ask the question, and honestly, it is a very important question to now more than ever. Is your organization and is your church prepared to take on an active shooter? And I know you have some church security seminars that are going on, one in Meridian, Mississippi, where people are listening to us on the Buzz, another one in Alabama in the Hoover area. We'll put those dates and times in show notes at rickandbubba.com. But thanks for being with us. We get to talk about some things, since you're talking about really any organization, but specifically churches. You are a former police sergeant who then became a pastor. Tell us about that journey.
Well, that's right. I was a police officer for 24 years in San Antonio. And as a young man growing up, all I ever wanted to do was be a police officer. I grew up watching Hawaii Five-0. That's the original Hawaii Five-0.
Right.
Adam 12 and all that. And I had no desire to become a pastor or anything. And God blessed me, and I was a police officer for 24 years. But the Lord has a way of changing you. And He changed my heart, and He changed my desires. And now I've been pastoring since 2002. I was a bivocational pastor for a while, but I'm full-time pastoring now. And it's disheartening, like you said, that we have to prepare churches and houses of worship for an active shooter situation. It's something they don't talk about in seminary. I never took any classes on it, but it's the reality that we face today.
Can I ask you? I'm sorry, Bubba, but I wanted to get, because this to me, before we go any further, now we start talking about church. We start talking about you being a pastor. I know you're certified as a firearms instructor, so you know how to use the weapons, which I know is very important. But let's talk biblically. What does the Bible say about the one's clear? Where does this part in our spiritual walk? What God says about us defending ourselves, even with deadly force?
Well, if you remember in Ephesians, the Lord tells husbands to love their wives as He loved the church and gave Himself for her. And so to me, as a husband and a father, it's a biblical command for me to defend my family. And most people agree with that. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not only at home. It's when you go out of home. It's when you go to the movie theater. It's when you're at the mall. It's when you're at church. And there's a lot of people that have this idea, well, what about thou shalt not kill? That's an Old Testament commandment, which is still today, but the word kill actually means in the Hebrew that you shall not murder.
Right.
And most of your more recent English translations have translated the word accurately as murder.
Yeah.
We're forbidden by the God of the Bible not to commit murder, but nowhere does He tell us not to defend ourselves, even with lethal force. And in the book Pistol in the Pulpit, I go through that. One thing I want to mention, if you don't mind, my seminars in Birmingham and in Meridian, Mississippi are actually winning a gunfight seminars, and those two seminars are targeted at law enforcement officers. It's a different seminar. I'm going to have a Pistol in the Pulpit seminar in the Birmingham area on the 18th. So there was a little bit of mix-up there.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, well, and we need to clarify that because on your website, Pistol in the Pulpit is prominent. The other one that you're talking about isn't so prominent. But so you do two different things. The one I just mentioned with Pistol in the Pulpit is obvious. You're training churches and organizations on what to do in the case of an active shooter. The other one, because you said there is a difference in surviving a gunfight and winning a gunfight. So tell us specifically about that particular training.
Okay, the winning a gunfight training is specifically aimed at law enforcement officers, combat veterans, and what that's about, it's based on my book, Winning a Gunfight. And in Winning a Gunfight, I talk about how to win a gunfight, not merely how to survive a gunfight. Most people who are involved in a gunfight survive, but there's a difference between surviving and winning. Surviving means that you survive with your whole body, your soul, and your spirit. For years, police officers and combat veterans have been taught how to win tactically in a gunfight. And recently, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman has been introducing officers and combat veterans how to win mentally, but nobody addresses the spiritual part of a person. And the human being is made up of body, soul, and spirit. So I bring all three parts together, body, soul, and spirit, in the book Winning a Gunfight, and talk about how to win a gunfight, not just how to survive a gunfight. Many officers, not all, but many end up with post-traumatic stress. And a lot of the reason for that is they're not sure before they go into a gunfight, before they pick up a gun, are they willing to take the life of another individual? Unfortunately, today in the media, you hear all this false news, if you will, about police officers actually wanting to harm people, and that's just not the case. The case is police officers are there to help people, and they're backed into situations many times where they must use deadly force. And in my 24 years of being a police officer, of having been involved in the shooting myself, and being a sergeant, and being a homicide detective investigating officer-involved shootings, it's been my experience that officers more often hesitate because they don't want to pull that trigger.
Right.
And so the seminar, Winning a Gunfight, helps officers put things to rest, prepare them ethically to make the hard decisions that they must make on the street on a daily basis.
Tim, I want to jump back to the Ten Commandments just a minute ago when you, and I think very accurately said that the commandment is thou shalt not murder. And by definition, and I think it's very important, murder is the illegal taking of a life, not the legal taking of a life.
That is correct. Murder is to do so with malice. And in my book, especially in Pistol in the Pulpit, but in both books, I go back to the Hebrew and explain the difference. Where Moses, in writing the first 5 books of the Bible, he used in various instances that same word that's translated as kill or murder, and you have to read the context and understand, but it's clearly, the Bible in 1 Chronicles chapter 11, the Bible lists David's warriors. These were men who fought and killed other people in battle. Mm-hmm. Some of them say so-and-so killed 300 men with a spear. Well, these warriors are listed in God's holy word, not because they killed people, but because they defended their nation against aggressors who would kill the nation of Israel. And so God honors these men because of their willingness to stand as warriors and protect the innocent.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, their resumes are listed in the Holy Word of God as doing the right thing because of why they were fighting and what they were defending.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. We know that David has said that he's a man after God's own heart. Well, David was a warrior. He killed people. In fact, the Lord said he wanted to build the temple, and the Lord said, no, I don't want you to build a temple because you have shed much blood. And so the Lord understood that David shed much blood, but yet the Bible says that that David had the heart of God, or he had a heart after God's own heart. That tells me that God has the heart of a warrior. And so he raises up men and women who are willing to stand in the gap and put their lives on the line for people they don't even know. And not everyone is given that gift, but those that do are given the gift, we need to train them and give them the authority and the capability to stand in the gap.
Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate you doing that. And so it shouldn't surprise us in the state of our society now that we would demonize the very people that answer that call. That's very typical of the reaction of a depraved society. Hey, thank you very much for the work you're doing. If you want to see how to win a gunfight and you want to see the training available to you, Mississippi and Alabama on May 15th and 16th. We'll be back.
Thanks, Tim.
I kind of want to help you walk through what we did. What we talked about with Tim Rupp was fascinating, and I think they're topics that are at the forefront right now involving the officers who need to be tended to and fully trained in all the aspects of what it takes to actually, sadly, sometimes kill a person in their line of duty. So the how to win a gunfight, which includes the spiritual aspects of it and everything, available to people in law enforcement, is one seminar. And the book on that is called Winning a Gunfight, and the seminar will be in Meridian, Mississippi, and in Hoover, Alabama, May 15 and 16. And we've got the website at rickandbubba.com in show notes. Now, the website is not as clear as you'd want it to be, but that's what you're looking for, how to win a gunfight. Those are the two training sessions in Mississippi and Alabama. Now, he also does seminars called Pistol in the Pulpit, kind of an unfortunate dropout on the cell phone there, made it sound a little bit different, but Pistol in the Pulpit, and this is the one that trains churches and organizations about active shooters, and there's a book that goes with that by Tim called Pistol in the Pulpit, and you can find out about those seminars that are going on as well, and there'll be one that will be here in our area coming up on on May the 18th. So I think I put that in a nutshell for you. It's two different seminars. So based on what you need to be sure you're signing up for the right seminar. So there you go. And I thank Tim for his words. And I think the thing that hit me that really, when he started talking about the things biblically around this, it really then shouldn't surprise us that the people that in our society, Romans 13, that are here to defend societies against evil and against those that want to wage war on the innocent, that we would start demonizing those people as opposed to the people who are causing all the ruckus.
Right.
And I'm not saying that every single officer is a wonderful human being and does the job the way it's supposed to be done, but the ones who are rogue that are in law enforcement, they are clearly the minority, not the majority, clearly. And you got to watch. Don't let that narrative get to the point that if you're in uniform, somehow you're somebody to be hated, not somebody to be thankful for. And we were raised up that you were thankful for these men and women.
Absolutely.
And anyway.